Hey, Laura, thank you for joining us on Facebook today.
Hi, Brooke. I'm glad to be here. You picked a great topic for today.
It's all about marketing. And I know that so many people struggle with this. And so I wanted to bring you on and have a conversation. But first, let's tell everybody a little bit about you. You ready? I'm going to read your bio.
Okay, great.
All right. So this is Laura Wessels. She is the Chief Brand Officer for Shine PR. And Laura is a strong advocate for building purpose-driven brands and marketing strategies that allow organizations socially responsible contributions to shine. With over 20 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies and nonprofit organizations, she strives to help them tell their story by creating exceptional brand experiences. Leveraging her background in research, analytics, strategy development, creative storytelling, and promotional events. She holds an MBA in marketing from the University of Maryland, go Turtles, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Russian studies from Wellesley. No, you went to Wellesley. No wonder I like you so much. Laura is energized by spending time outdoors and enjoys volunteering with her dog at her local library, helping young students build confidence in their reading ability. Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Brooke.
I love how well written that is. I think that's because you're in PR, like you know how to sell it.
I had a little help, but
All right. So we wanted to talk today. Somebody on my team read a book one time that talked about random acts of marketing. And she's like, our clients are doing random acts of marketing. And she kind of explained it to me. I'm like, I think we are too. So can you talk a little bit about random acts of marketing and just what is a random act of marketing?
I think that's a great place to start today. And I'll have a couple questions for you, Brooke. So we're all guilty of random acts of marketing. Don't get me wrong. But let me ask you, have you ever created social media content for one channel and then decided to use it across all of your channels? Have you ever
Yeah,
found
every
yourself?
day. Like, is there a problem with that?
Well, hold on. Have you
That's
ever
what
found yourself?
we do.
That's right. Have you ever sent an email newsletter to clients one time and then forgot to keep that nurturing campaign going? Have you found yourself engaging with prospects in an unpredictable one-off basis? I think we've all done that. And then have you ever sponsored an event or an attended event where your ideal customer profile wasn't anywhere close to being there? If you have, then you have done random acts of marketing. And again, we've all done it. It's a natural thing that we do. But let me tell you a little bit about them and why we want to move away from random acts of marketing and think about deliberate marketing. So when you think about random acts of marketing, they are tactics that are employed to help companies increase their brand awareness and drive revenue, which sounds good, right? That's what companies are trying to do with their marketing. But with random acts of marketing, and random is the key word, they're ineffective because they aren't strategy driven. They're done reactively, not proactively and against an integrated marketing plan. And they don't produce a return on investment. And this is an equation, and I was doing a little research for today, and I found this quite funny. When you think about random acts of marketing, here's the mathematical equation. No budget plus no assigned resources plus no strategy equals no results. And I'll
Well,
pause there.
and I think that's really true because we do these things and you put, it may be no budget, but there's time that goes into it. And we feel like, well, we don't have any cash, but we'll put the time in and we'll do this, and this is better than nothing. Is this is better than nothing really true?
I don't think so, because even if you put time against a project and you feel proud of that project, if you haven't thought about the strategy behind it, your objectives and goals with that tactic, and then put some kind of analytics or success metrics against it, all you have is the time to show for it. and you can't really measure long-term if it was successful. You also don't have a way to know if you need to pivot quickly and take that money and that timeline and put it against another tactic that would actually work better for your company. Don't feel bad because we're all doing it. And I'll give you
So,
some examples as we talk a little more about my own experience of
okay,
random
so
acts.
I'm glad to know that, like, because we do, you know, I'm really, really, really guilty of, and I'm just going to have to ask you more about this. I am guilty of taking the same piece of social media
Mhm.
and putting it on all three channels. Can you just explain why that's so bad? Because
Absolutely.
you kind of mentioned something about this the other day, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was very proud of myself for getting that done. Because we're
Mhm.
consistent, right? I mean, we
That's
need
right.
consistency.
Yeah. And you can be consistent. And this is a really interesting nuance is you can be consistent with your message. And that's part of having your brand strategy and your marketing strategy in place. Your messaging comes into play with that strategy, and that enables you to have a consistent message. But when you start to think about taking that message and your positioning statements and creating content, you really need to think about the content being curated deliberately for the channel you're using. So if you're on Twitter and you're on LinkedIn, you want to think strategically about the content you are creating. The messages need to be the same, but the way you talk about the messaging and the way you talk to the audiences, which are different on those channels, is key. And then you also need to be able to engage depending on how the channel is performing for you. So for Twitter, if you're getting likes and um, forwards and you're getting engagement, then you need to also have the backup message. You don't just go silent. And that can happen with random acts of marketing is you just push something out, but then you don't follow up and you don't watch the engagement. And if engagement starts to tank, you need to have a very quick proactive response to that.
Okay. There's so many things on here that I'm guilty of doing. But let me ask you this. So, yeah, I didn't really prepare you for this.
That's okay.
One of the things you get to do is you get to solve all my problems on these things. So,
Okay.
and answer all my questions, because I think my questions are similar to the questions that a lot of other people have.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing this, if I know who my ideal client is,
Mm-hmm.
and I am speaking to my ideal client on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, which are our three platforms, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking to the same client, why do I need to be changing what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think it is a little hard to understand that, but I think when depending on the channel, again, you have the ability to have more characters. You have the ability to have more content on one channel versus another. Um, you have the ability, especially if you think about LinkedIn, which has really become a great landscape for the B2B space and driving business that way. It used to be something that people only thought about for jobs. They would go
Right.
and look at LinkedIn to find a job. But it really has become an ecosystem where people can network and showcase what they have to offer in terms of products and services. I think that platform lends itself better to say perhaps Twitter, where you only have so much space in a
Right.
tweet that you can actually get your word out there, and you may have to follow up more. Um, the other thing I think about with digital media is it's the way of the future, and we think about social media a lot of the time, but we don't want to forget YouTube. We don't want to forget the ability to do podcasts or blogs. All of those can be part of an integrated marketing strategy and can be done in a way that they are not random. Like what we're doing today, for example, this Facebook Live event. The fact that you
You're
have
going to tell me
created
that it
these.
falls in the random category?
No, I'm not. I'm giving you an example of a deliberate marketing tactic, one that has a strategy behind it because you've been doing this and you have done it over a period of time. You've done it during a pandemic. You've seen engagement. You've picked interesting topics, unique topics, and it's working for you. You have created, in a sense, a Facebook Live series, but it's also like a podcast. It could be a vlog, the with a log after it, and not blog.
I
So I think you're
stand
doing
that
this right.
term.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make you feel better? What we're doing here today is not random.
Awesome. All right. So we talked a little bit about why why small companies should avoid random acts of marketing. And you talked about kind of throwing away the time and wasting the resources. Do you want to go into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, yeah. I think there are a number of reasons that firms should avoid random acts of marketing, and it's because they really will cause pain points along the way. Um, I think one of the most important things that I would tell you is that random acts of marketing can actually cause your brand to feel inauthentic, non-genuine, and that can lead to risks that you may not be aware of. It might be a brand risk, it might be a reputational risk, it might be a risk to the quality of your product or service, or even the customer satisfaction that you track and measure very carefully. Um, I mentioned
Or are you
before that
talking
they're
about
often
like doing the random Facebook Live while you're drunk in a bar can hurt your reputation?
I would not advocate for that, because again, there's some reputational risks that go along with it. Um, but that's something to really be aware of. And I don't think when you're working on these tactics, these one-off tactics, you think about that. Um, I also think when they are disjointed and they're poorly timed and reactionary, it gives a sense of a wrong message and the wrong customer experience, which is so important these days. The journey that a prospect or a client takes with you is really important. And I'm going to give you an example of something that I've done, and I'll say I'm a little embarrassed that I was a part of this. But at one time, we thought it was a great idea to actually take video that we created, beautiful video, and we put a little paid money behind it. And not
Yeah.
a lot, but a little bit of pie. And we drove people from social to YouTube to watch the video. But guess what? We didn't have any call to action from the video. We didn't have anything embedded in the video. We didn't even have the vanity URL that would drive them back. All we had in the little description under the video was our main URL. So when someone saw the social and the video, which looked like they went together, they were complementary pieces, but then went to the homepage of the website, they didn't see anything that matched the experience they just had on social and on YouTube. And we saw abandonment. And we also didn't track. So it was really hard to know people hitting your homepage. Were they just hitting your homepage in general? Or were they hitting it
Or
because
they-
they read the little description on YouTube? What's important, and the reason I tell you the story, is you're excited to get something out there. You have the social, you have the video ready to go, but you need to think about the longer horizon and how you get people back to you. And one way to do that is to customize either an optimized landing page, doing some kind of specialized page so that, again, the social, the video, and that landing page all work together.
Together.
And that will help you drive conversions.
Well, and I did something similar, and I may have told you about this. I can't remember, but I was stalking an author at one point, and we had done a Facebook Live. I want her to come on Facebook Live with us because she's just incredible and she talks about the neatest things. And we had been talking about her on a Facebook Live, and so I put some money behind that video on Facebook, just so I could go to her and say, look, our average engagement is X, you got Y. I'm going to tell you, I put $50 behind it. And isn't that incredible? Our people really react to you. That was the plan. That was what we wanted to accomplish. What I found out was that 41 people went to my website. Like, so not the point. But then I started to obsess over the 41 people that I wasted that were interested enough in our company to find out more. But all I know is that they went to the thing. I didn't have a way to capture them. I didn't have a way to get their email address. I didn't have a way to put them into some kind of drip campaign or some kind of nurture sequence.
That's right.
So that, I mean, they just went to our homepage, and I don't know that our homepage is really designed to convert all that well. And it didn't have, it was exactly what you were saying. It had nothing to do with this video that they watched on this really cool author. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was a waste. And I was bummed. I mean,
well, and I think that can hit hard too when you know you've put, especially if you put a significant amount of money or you're eager to bring in this influencer. I really go back to, if you have a strategy and as part of the strategy, you lay out the roadmap, you're thinking about the first thing that the customer sees, the second thing, the third thing, and then what is that call to action and that conversion mechanism you're going to use? And then how do you overlay the measurement and the analytics across? So at every step of the process, you know exactly who has taken up your offer. And that takes time. And that's part of the negative around random acts of marketing is they're often done quickly without really thinking about what happens down the line. And when you think about managing something like that without a plan, you can also put so many out there that you don't even remember what you have out there. And years later, you can find out, as this has happened to me in a previous life, that you still have old pages out there about an offer that no longer is even offered. You can't even get it anymore. And that can also lead to reputational risk too, when someone sees something old out there. So you almost need to project manage and work the plan, right? If you have a plan, you make the plan, you have to work the plan.
how do you deal with the plan? How do you come up with the plan? Who's
Well,
the person?
Yeah. Well, a marketing plan, if you think about it, it really starts with several things. It's going to start with your key goals and objectives. What do you hope to do with this campaign? And then what does your brand mean to this campaign? What audiences are you trying to attract? What do you expect the audience to do? What action do you want them to take? And then you want to think about the key messages.
I think that action's so important when we go back to the random acts. It's like we want to put our knowledge, our information, our agenda as the owners. We put our agenda out there, right? You need to know this fun fact. But we're not asking for any response. We're not asking for any action. We're not creating an opportunity for them to do anything more than hit the like button.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think you also have to take into consideration that what we might think is a great marketing tactic, Brooke, because we think it's great. Like, we need to post on social. If we don't know our audience, then we're wasting our time and our money in a channel they may not play in. And so when you have a plan, you are getting to customers and prospects at the right time, in the right channel, and with the right message. And without that, you really are just doing it with a blindfold on. And I've had this experience again too, where I thought I knew where my prospects were and where they were navigating to on the web and how they did research, and that I should be there. Well, it turned out once I did a little research, and so research is another key to a strategic plan, know your audience. And what I found was, no, they weren't anywhere near where I thought they should be. And I had to switch gears. And once
No, I want you to be here.
Yeah, I did. I was actually heartbroken. They weren't where I thought. But once I switched gears and I went to where they were at the right time of year that they were searching for my product, and I had the right conversion message that I tested, then I started to see results. But all of that takes planning and time. It's not just throw it on the wall and see what happens. You can still test some random acts of marketing because some may turn into great campaigns, but you need to make sure that you have, especially the objectives and the goals lined up. Your success metrics are there, and there's some accountability if it doesn't work. Often we just walk away and we just pretend like it didn't happen.
Well, I had a client who decided to do TV ads.
Mhm, mhm. A lot of people
And
think TV is the way to go.
I
Mhm,
thought TV was the way to go. $10,000 a month. They, what is the thing you always hear? You have to touch a client or a potential client 7 to 10 times before they'll take an action, whatever. So they said it's going to take about 3 months for you to hit that saturation point so that they've seen it enough so that they will take action. Great.
mhm,
Month 3, $30,000 in.
mhm.
I think we had gotten $300 worth of paid consultations. And I'm like, we got to pull the plug on this.
Yep. And
Because
that's where the pivot, where if you're monitoring, Brooke, and you've hit a milestone of 30 grand and seen no results, that's where you pivot and you quickly put that money against something that's going to work.
yeah,
And you already have it in the hopper. You've already done your plan. So you have tactics on the shelf ready to go. And a lot of the pivot, it's very important to be, and that you could move budget around.
well, and what was frustrating about this situation was I think the TV station had great salespeople,
Mhm,
because even though the plan was at 3 months, pull the plug if it's not working. Like, we gave you the 3 months that you requested. She
mhm.
kept paying for 2 more months
Oh
because it
boy.
was like, oh, I'm this far in. I must be just that close. I don't know if you've read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He tells the story of the guy who's like digging for gold, and he digs and digs and digs and digs and he doesn't get it and he quits, and somebody else buys the mine or something. I don't know. Turns out he was less than a foot from this giant vein of gold.
Mhm.
So they kind of feel like, I'm $30,000 in, like I'm on
Yeah,
the brink of.
I'm on the brink of success. That's right. Or bringing them in.
Yeah, so how do
Mhm.
you make that decision? How do you know whether you're on the brink or not? How do you know whether to go in more or pull the money?
I would say I think that's where research comes in and knowing again where your prospects or your customers are going to be. I'm often asked, well, why can't I do a Super Bowl ad? Everyone's watching the Super Bowl. But that may not be the best way to reach a big audience with your message. And it's not necessarily worth that money. It's a one-time thing, right? You spend oodles of money for a one-time play. You
Right.
might need to phase in your messaging and your tactics over time and have much more opportunity to build awareness over time as opposed to relying on the one TV ad. But everyone seems to think that's the way. Video has become more and more important, but with video, you need to first get them to the video. So that's where
Okay.
your digital channels become really important. Or an event, for example, if you're at a booth and you're talking about um, even speaking at a conference,
Yeah.
you can drive people to your resources, your video resources too, that way. But I think when you research and you know where your customer and your prospects are, you
Mhm.
are better able to say, okay, I'll test this. I'll test it up to 30,000. If I see nothing, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to try these other 4 channels and I'm
And
going to
it's
measure them so that I can see the success.
and it's just really sticking to that plan. The plan was
Mhm.
$30,000. The plan was 3 months.
That's right.
And and it's okay to pull the plug if you've
Mhm.
worked the plan and the plan isn't working.
That's right. And that I think lends itself to another point. and I'm glad you just jogged my mind with it. It's important to monitor. So you can't just walk away. You can't just put the TV ad out there and hope for the best. That's where that sense of managing a project and measuring against your goals and objectives, it's something you're constantly doing and going back and evaluating. And I think that often is overlooked. And then 3 months go by and someone says, "Hey, how's that ad performing?" Well, you should actually know every day how that ad is performing if you put the right analytics. So you might not even get to the 30,000 spend, Brooke. You may say, "I've done 10 and now I have 20 left in this budget. I want to take that 20 that's left and test another channel because I know that's where my prospects are."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the goal is to shift from random acts of marketing
Mm-hmm.
to a strategic plan with specific tactics.
That's right. That's right. And I would say, Brooke, that when you're building your plan, research comes along with it. You need to think about the research and what you know about your customer, what you know about your competition,
Mhm.
um, and what are their pain points, both the customer as well as the competition. You
I
need to.
I was working with
Uh-huh.
a brand company in Nashville, and
Hmm.
they're awesome. And one of the first things they have you do is create the avatar, which, you've always heard, who's your avatar? Who's your ideal client? And, I've done it all different kinds of ways. I had stickies up on the wall at one point
Huh?
with, this is the psychographic and this is the whatever. And um, they do that. And then they tell you to name the person
Yes. Hmm. I
and
have
write
seen
out
that.
their life story.
Uh-huh.
And anytime you write anything, anytime you do any kind of marketing, to pull that out and read it and then
Hmm.
write to that person,
Yeah.
which I thought was
I think that's
fascinating.
a great approach. It also helps you envision this person and how they see you and your company. When you can bring to life a little bit this conglomerate of your
Yeah.
audiences, I think it really does help. And sometimes you have to have several personas. So that's another thing that I've seen done. And if you map out their journey, some of the personas are going to have a different journey with you than others. And that's really good to know as well, because there may be prospects that are only going to go so far on the journey. So your messaging needs to be on point with that. And there may be some that are in for the long haul and become long-term clients. And that's a different type of approach with them too. And I think it's good to experiment. It's just experiment with a plan and be willing to test and learn um, as you go along.
So have a plan
Hmm.
with anticipated results
That's right.
and monitor those results. Monitor all the
Mhm.
attorneys love this. Monitor all the math that comes out of this.
Absolutely.
Monitor those numbers that you were promised. They were all promised in law school, no numbers. So monitor the results.
Hmm.
And if it's not matching up with the plan, abandon it and move on to
Hmm.
something else.
That's
Is
right.
there a time when we're running a campaign and it's not living up to our expectations? Is there ever a time where we should be tweaking the campaign as opposed to abandoning it? And how do you make that kind of decision?
Mhm. I like that approach too. I think when you are starting to get some results, um, that is an opportunity to tweak. I also think that if you have some research that tells you um, the message is on point, but the channel is wrong, you could take that same message you're using in one channel and move it to another channel. Because we have so many vehicles available to us today to market in.
Yeah.
We have social, we have other digital media, we have paid search, we've got podcasts, we've got blogs, we have Oh, there's so many things, and not all of them are right for everybody. And I think when you understand where your audience is going to be playing, then you can come up with the right tactics. But you also need to think about, do you have the experience right? So if you're going to change tactics, you also want to make sure you're keeping a cohesive experience. The last thing you want is a disjointed experience, because when you think about brand building, you build your brand based on the experience that a company has with you. They create impressions and perceptions based on that experience. And if they don't have a good one, they are less likely to come back to you. But if
Okay.
you set up that experience with them, thinking about what you know about them, you are more likely to hit the mark and bring them in and slowly cultivate a long-term customer.
Awesome. All right. Okay, my head's spinning. Like I can't even. You've
I
got
understand.
you've given us a lot of great information today. Um, so if you can sum it up, what do you want
Yeah.
people to really take away from today?
Yep, I can definitely do that. So let's just go back to the beginning, Brooke, and let's remember random acts of marketing. This is what you look for when you're starting to think, am I doing something random? Look for, is it funded in your original budget? If not, it's probably a random act of marketing. Is it in your marketing plan? Nope, not. It's random. Is it integrated into everything else you're doing? No. And then, have you put any metrics against it for success? If those 4 points come up as no, you have a random act of marketing issue on your hands. So what you need to do is take a step back, and you need to put the time and thought into a strategic marketing plan. And by that, I mean, actually look at the goals and objectives you want to get out of it. And also think about the key messages, your key differentiators, and then you overlay research that you know about your customers, your prospects, and your competition. And then you start to think about the tactics that will align with what you know from your research. Not all channels are going to work. We often think, oh, let's just use all the channels available to us. But research will tell you which channels are available. And I know this feels like a lot of work and a lot of planning,
Yeah,
and it can be.
I was just going to say, what if we don't have a marketing plan? Can we call you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do at Shine PR. We love to sit down with clients and think about, how do we bring big brand experience to smaller brands, emerging brands, so that they can benefit and raise their visibility and their company's awareness in the same way big brands can. And we do it with a purpose. We help you find your purpose. And I would happy to talk with anyone who would like to learn more about random acts of marketing, would like to hear more stories about me and my mistakes, or how I can help you avoid them.
Well, it's awesome to know that even someone like you, with all of your experience, has done random acts of marketing, because I
Mhm.
think that, I mean, I think a lot of the law firms I know, a lot of the small companies I know, don't have an actual marketing plan. So therefore, like when you were going down, is it in the original budget? Is it in the plan? I'm like, there's not a freaking plan. So like
Right.
that kind of makes everything random.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I,
And it is, so it is something that, again, if you don't have that within your firm today, there are a number of ways that a boutique agency like the one I work with can help, and also take that burden off of you and help you feel like you actually have a roadmap to move forward with.
awesome. Okay. So Laura, if they want to find you, I know
Mhm.
that your URL is shinepr.com, but what if they wanted to get in touch with you?
Yes, it's easy. It's Laura, Laura, at shinepr.com.
Awesome. Laura, thank you so much for doing this. I really
You are so
appreciate it.
welcome, Brooke. And invite me back again. We'll talk about another fun topic. I'll share some more mistakes I've made along the way. Happy to do that. I think we all learn that way.
I don't know. I think we got to digest what we've gotten here. This was a lot. This was because I think one of the hardest things about what you've said is the realization that as small companies, most of what we do is random acts of marketing. Because we don't have that plan. We don't have, like, we have all these little pieces, and I know that we are guilty of this. We have all these different pieces going, but they're not part of a cohesive whole. And they don't necessarily have the strategy, nor are we looking at the results in the analytics enough. So we're just doing a lot of random acts of marketing.
But when you take a step back and you really think about deliberate acts of marketing, and you think about that ideal customer and how they interact with you, you are really forming that perception they take away from your brand and that experience they have, and that emotional connection. And if it's done in an integrated, planned way, you can make that connection with them again at the right place, at the right time, and with the right message. And then bam, you've become interesting, you've become relevant, and you can problem solve. And you will start to get those phone calls and requests for help.
That is awesome. I want to end there. So Laura, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to get you, it's laura@shinepr.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brooke. It was great to be with you.